You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell.
And co-host Keelan Harvey.
You're a local mortgage experts right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, August 18th show. We bring into studio each week the best of the best experts in our local market, everything when it comes to your money. We're here to help you in today's market. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that we have on the show. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, it's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And in studio right now, Michael Pollock with Northwest Premier Brokers, the evolving Seattle area market. Michael, thank you so much for joining us in studio.
Thank you very much for having me, Tina. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, a little bit about Michael. Michael is the managing broker and owner of Northwest Premier Brokers and has been in the real estate industry for 14 years. He also focuses on the metro area. Michael has assisted clients with home sales and purchases throughout the Western Washington. It is Michael's passion to provide all of his clients, no matter their needs, goals, or property type, with superior representation, information, and expertise, and how to make their real estate transaction to a successful one from start to finish. He believes that being a successful real estate professional requires having a real relationship with his clients and treating them just like family.
So, Michael, let's talk about the overall Washington market here. What the heck's going on?
Well, Keelan, things have changed. And for the first time in what seems like probably a couple of years now, we're seeing some statistics come out. And they just came out in the last week from the Northwest Multiple Listing Service that are showing a little bit of evolution as to what's going on. The statistics for July, we had a median close price of $415,000 throughout the Northwest MLS. That's a 9% increase since July of 2017, which, hey, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that did happen, though, is that price decreased in comparison to June. So
Wow.
It dropped by $10,000 from the median sales price in June. So that's the first sign that we've seen, okay,
Yeah, I haven't seen that
these
in a while.
price increases all of a sudden are not going up the way that they have been. So, and in comparison to July 2017, there's 328 fewer closed sales than there were last year. So less sales. There's more active listings. They've gone up 6% since last year. And we've now got the largest volume of active listings since September 2016. And that's pushing up the inventory total, which we typically like to look at it in the number of months of inventory, to 1.8 months, which that's a significant number because typically in the past we'd always said, well, 2 months is pretty good, 4 months is about an even market. And for the past couple of years, we've been, a couple weeks of inventory.
In some neighborhood days, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a significant change in the amount of available inventory on the market. And we also are seeing less pending sales this year than last year. 7% drop, actually, in the number of pending sales. So there's some changes in the market going on that a lot of people kind of need to be aware of. And that's throughout all of Western Washington. But here in the Seattle area, things are changing as well. And for the first time, we're seeing things that we haven't seen since 2015. For the first time, we've got inventory levels that are up to where we were in the first quarter of 2015. So that's a big shift. And although the inventory in King County is still only at 1.5 months, which is good, we really are not
near a balanced market, which is 4. So we're still 100% a seller's market.
Exactly. We're still in a
Yes.
seller's market, and we're still seeing competition out there. We're still seeing homes that are selling, 24 hours, 48 hours. That's still out there, but there's also homes that are sitting on the market that are taking a couple weeks to sell, a month or two to sell. And you've got sellers that are going, hey, what's going on? Where's my multiple offers? And why am I not selling in a couple days above my list price? And that all comes back to the change in the inventory. So we finally have kind of started to get a little bit of an evolution and get the inventory that we've been needing. And as that's coming into play, it gives buyers more options. And I also think the buyers are also looking at the market overall and being a little bit more hesitant in their decision making. And they're not necessarily going after every single property out there that has any potential. But they're really focusing on the ones that are highly desirable.
And would you say, too, Michael, with the change in some having multiple offers, some not, some having to lower their price, a lot of that is could be of how they're listing as well, and how they're listing that price, and whether they're going aggressive or too aggressive. Would you say that that's some of the reason why there's different things happening with different homes?
Yes, most definitely. What we're seeing, and this started to show up a little bit this last 6 months, is that properties that came on priced too high to start with, too aggressive, were not selling in that initial window, that first week to 10 days on market. And the whole offer review date thing that had been going on for the past couple of years, people were going to their offer review date and not getting a single offer. So wait a minute, that's a big change from what we experienced over the past 2 years when, maybe you've got 3, 5, 10 offers on some properties to now having none. And then a buyer is looking at that listing and saying, hey, this has been on the market past its offer review date.
Yes.
So
what's wrong?
Why is that?
Yes.
What isn't working for people? Did they price it too high to begin with? Is it just not an attractive property? And that's the other thing that we're seeing, is that if a property is really attractive and it's priced correctly, then it will continue to move quickly. I mean, I've seen some properties that have come on and sold in 24 hours just in the past week, but it's because they were priced right and they had a lot of buyer interest based upon their location or what it was that they had to offer.
So, Michael, speaking of, what Seattle neighborhoods are the hottest right now?
Well, in terms of neighborhoods, areas that continue to be the most attractive for buyers in the city of Seattle have been the traditional areas that people have high desirability for. The Green Lakes, the Queen Anne's, the Leshais. However, what we are seeing now is a little bit of evolution where their price points in those areas have reached a critical point where people just can't afford them, particularly if you're a first-time home buyer. So some of the areas that are a little bit further outside of town, whether it's north or south of downtown, are becoming a lot more active. And those are the areas that are really seeing these dramatic price gains as of the last couple of months, because people are looking at them and saying, well, if I just commute an extra 15 minutes or an extra 20 minutes, then I can get something that I can afford that's not $800,000 plus to be a first-time home buyer in these price points that we have here in the Seattle market. It's difficult for a lot of them. So what it's doing not only to the Seattle city itself is we're seeing those outlying neighborhoods pick up in price, but outside of Seattle, we're seeing some big gains and changes into the prices in Pierce County now.
Makes sense,
You've got people that are looking at it saying, well, wait a minute, I can go 45 minutes to an hour south in terms of commuting, and all of a sudden I can get into a house that's maybe new construction for
just do transit,
$500,000. So I'm hearing this more and more from buyers that they're looking at it from the bigger picture and saying, well, does it really make sense for me to spend that much more money for the product that I'm not really wanting or doesn't really fit my needs, just to be closer to my work when I can commute a little bit longer and get what I need for myself and my family.
So, Michael, what continues to push up the prices at such a dramatic rate?
Well, that all comes back to inventory, as we know, as it has been for the past couple of years. And as the inventory will continue to increase, we would expect the price gains to slow up a little bit. But until our inventory gets to a point where it becomes more of a balanced market, then we're still going to have some nice gains to be had over the next 6 months, 12 months. My expectation is that we will see some better gains in some of the areas that are further outside of downtown Seattle that, like we talked about previously.
So, Michael, our listeners that are looking to sell, what do they need to know to be successful in this new market we're approaching here pretty quickly?
Well, I think the thing that's most important is they need to have realistic expectations from the get-go. And in this day and age, the consumer who's considering selling their home is bombarded with a lot of information online. You see these automated values that are produced by a number of online companies. And
Yeah.
people get these ideas as to what their property might be worth without actually consulting a real estate professional who gives them a full detailed evaluation of what the market value of their property could be. And
A real one, instead of giving them something higher, hoping to get the listing, because, as you know, there's a lot of strategy out there that way, which is really not the real estate expert you want to be talking with.
No. And any estimated value that comes from an algorithm is not going to be accurately determining what a market value is, because it
Agreed,
doesn't take into account the details of the property. It doesn't use like comparable properties, which is really the true way to determine a market value, is using similar properties, comparing them, making adjustments based upon the differences between the properties to come up with your market value that way. Some of these estimates that you get online are based upon the sales price versus the tax assessment value, but you're using properties that are widely different.
All over the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to create a ratio of that and come up with a value for properties that could be dramatically different in size, age, condition.
A lot of things, yeah.
It's not going to be accurate.
Yeah. So, Michael, what are the buyers experiencing, your buyers experiencing, and how can they be successful in the market when it's still not as crazy, but it is still a crazy market?
So what I'm counseling all my buyers right now to do is you still need to approach this market as it's been for the last 6 months to a year, from the perspective of if there's an attractive property that comes on that you're interested in, you really need to make an effort with your broker to go see it as soon as it comes on the market. Because those properties that are in popular neighborhoods, attractive price points, they're still selling quickly.
Yes.
I've had 2 different buyers in the past week where they were interested in property, and one 24 hours later was pending, one 48 hours was pending before we could even get out to see them. And this was just over a weekend, not even like during the week. So it's important that people approach it from the perspective of, hey, I need to go after what interests me. And then if it's a property that I want to go after, then crafting an offer that's going to be aggressive enough to get the property. And that's important to take into account, even in this market, that you don't know what you're going to encounter for competition out there.
Yeah. Well, and it is a challenging market. It's challenging because we've come out of a really, really crazy market and not really sure how crazy, or maybe that it's slowing down. So you really having that strategy that's going to kind of work all over the market isn't. It's really specific in what's happening. So
it's very specific to each property.
Yes.
And that's what people need to realize, that you can't approach every single property the same way, that you have to look at it and say, okay, what do I need to do if this is the property that I want in order to secure it and get it under contract?
yeah.
Well, Michael, I know especially neighborhood specific, there's still multiple offers going on. What are you doing differently to help your buyers stand out when there's a multiple offer scenario?
The most important thing when you're crafting an offer is to put together an offer that is straightforward and makes sense to both the seller's broker and the seller themselves. Limit the contingencies to ones that are necessary. And we're coming out of this period where pretty much people were waiving contingencies across the board, which is, not really the most recommended way to go about things.
Yeah.
And I counseled many a buyer, look, here's my recommendation. You want to do an inspection. You want to keep your financing contingency in place. That doesn't necessarily mean they followed my recommendations, because if you're going full bore after the property that you want, and you've got 10 other offers that you're competing against, you're doing whatever you can to try and win. Now, as this inventory issue starts to abate, you can be a little bit more crafty in what contingencies you can include. You can have that inspection contingency, or maybe you can set up the opportunity to do a pre-inspection before you make your offer. Not only that, but having your financing ready is essential, not just a pre-qual letter. Anybody can get a pre-qual letter. It's having your financing in for loan approval. It's been reviewed by an underwriter, so they know what it is that your situation is. The only thing you're waiting for is a property and a purchase price and the details on the contract. That's essential. And I also recommend that buyers have their lending person contact the seller's broker to answer any questions they might have about the buyers themselves, their financial situation.
Totally. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just, here's the details on my pre-approval letter and my financing contingency about, how much percent down I'm doing, what type of loan it is that I'm doing. But it's important to have every little tool in your arsenal in order to continue to be successful and win in this market.
Yeah, great advice,
Yeah.
Michael. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us in studio. Really appreciate your time and look forward to having you coming back.
All right. Thank you very much.
And this is your host, Tina Mitchell.
And co-host Keelan Harvey.
We're your mortgage experts signing off for today. We'll be here next weekend, same time, same place, right here at 11:50 a.m. KKNW. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah.